I want to give a Sun conjunct Rahu message while we're still in the night of Soul, heading towards Jupiter Day. And, it's 5 a.m. where I am. And, been waking up just to go to the bathroom and have a cup of water. And I always wake up with something that I have to say. Of course, the Sun conjunct in Rahu, where the eclipse point is going to be. Sun is leaders, and we basically are going to have an eclipse 2-3 degrees away from where the sun is now, on April 8th, which is just a couple of days from now. And I wanted to give a word both to we the leaders and to we the people, because leaders are people, essentially, and people are leaders. Um, Yesterday, my other motherland, my fatherland, Netherlands, got a recruitment order, okay, for the army. And I know that this is happening more or less around Europe. And so the notion that the leaders are people and people are leaders is becoming more and more relevant. We are painted a picture as if this is not the case, but it's not true. I want to say that the only thing I've seen in my life, in my personal life, and around me, that actually works to prevent genuine violence, any sort of violence, is what I call the right to exit. And the right to exit a violent situation is a person who's been in a violent situation, exited them numerous times. When a person or a leader gets out, or they want you out, okay, because when those who found you decide that you no longer are relevant to them, you are in the same situation as this marginalized person, as this genuinely secular refugee, okay, that just wants to escape fundamentalism, as the genuine a husband that wants to escape a relationship so that it won't get overly toxic, or a woman escaping similar situation. Yes, notice my language. I'm not even saying a battered man, a battered woman. No, a person that identified that the situation right now is overwhelming for the participants and wants to de escalate by taking space and time to themselves. Let alone if it already has de escalated. And for that, we need a culture where people can say, I am, and define that I am by themselves, and to say yes, no, and maybe according to what's authentic to them. When those who found leaders decide they no longer want the leaders, that day, all the protection around them, all the steady rock that maybe they have given power to for decades even, they're gone. And so the only call to action when we come to abolish violence at any phase in our lives that I seen, and again, I don't say I have the absolute truth, I'm saying what I seen is the right to exit. And when you exit a violent situation, darling, you cannot work. Sometimes people tend to overwork themselves. I did that too. You're ineffective, and basically you could cause yourself accidents. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't be allowed to work. It's more like you want there to be access to housing, to food that's independent of your ability to work efficiently at this very moment. But you also need to be allowed the right to exit this situation. So bureaucracy has to be way more sensitive with you. Transparency as to what my money funds, because when a person escaped violence, they usually were in such connection with the body could no longer stay there. This is how we go out. Really, it's like sometimes you don't even understand what's happening. Just go out, you burst that like an animal, and then um, you will have similar reaction. So when you're one of the things I manifested when I was in, I don't know what people call trauma bounds or whatnot, I said I want my animalistic reaction, my instead of a fight or flight reaction, I want the instinct to be life preserving and to go into, so that my instinct would be to be in healthy situations in my life. Okay, and so we actually get that. Your body won't go to that work where any day they can decide either that they don't need you or somebody, they've sent infiltrated agents of violence. Yes, anybody that's been fighting fundamentalism know what I'm talking about. Okay. Um, you can't, like, there are many things that even when you begin to slowly recover, first of all, your energy levels are not straight. Okay, and it can take decades. We can become older. Um, I find that working in my own garden helps. It doesn't look like an IG promotion to working in your garden. Okay, it's yellow flowers that you sometimes are like, okay, I'm gonna have a snack bite if I'm not if I'm not gonna trim that down. It is at times where you are like, will I be able to water my plants today? It doesn't look anything industrial, and that's exactly what it is. It doesn't look like industrialized society because you partially were recovering from the place where industrialized society was not the best way to make progress technologically and spiritually and so on. And it's nothing to do with you can be purely capitalist and understand the same. Just, uh, in fact, it is about autonomy and sovereignty, right? Especially when we're in Aries. And so the only call to action is to tend to these marginalized people and to create, we the people, to create a culture that is inclusive of the other, not in a way that makes other people marginalized. Okay, if I'm inclusive of a violent person, but I don't create a space where that person gets the space to themselves, but is not so exposed to performing the same violence. Yes, I've been inclusive, but I've marginalized another person. And we want to be inclusive in a way that allows people their autonomy and sovereignty, um, where they can say yes, no, and maybe as is authentic to themselves. And we all have, none of us grew in such culture. We all have our own growth process to go with this, and our own blind spots. Okay, um, especially if we've been disempowered. The part of me, I'm going to a Pluto square Pluto. Part of my Pluto square Pluto is like, hey, your Pluto also square other people's personal planet, and your personal planet had have an impact over another person's Pluto, which is an outer planet that denotes power, but also the sense of feeling disempowered. Um, and you might like it's the fact that you had power over a person in such a way that frightened them, that caused them to be reactive, and frighten you. So a part of that growth process, like, hey, that, or hey, that person that you've been talking to could be your half your age, could be a little brother, and you treat all people as equal. So we all have growth process to go through with these things. Um, But the big understanding, I think, as the sun approaches Rahu is, it's not that I don't know this, but if I woke up with this, I guess it's relevant. Um, our leaders are people just as much. Okay, when that leader is no longer, and how people are recruited. If you're recruited to the intelligence, you're recruited based on sociopathic tendencies, conjoined with the love to the motherlanders. If there is, if that is the case, but many people are even marginalized and are recruited. So you're recruited on the basis that you could do anything, including anything in your job, and maybe you are high achieving. This is what I learned from ex-CIA agents that give interviews publicly on YouTube. So it's not the. This is how I got this information. You can get this information too. It's readily accessible. Um, but when you're a leader, uh, in some cases, there's something that's very painful for you, and you've had an experience with that, and this becomes a part of your I am. And this is how you could get funded, which means recruited. If you're funded, you're recruited to some agenda which you believe that maybe you will be able to implement your call to actions or significant part of your call to action. This is politics, whether the funders are the people or grants or whatnot. Of course, the thin line between intelligence and leaders and Sun excels in Aries. Aries has to do with the army. Aries has to do with intelligence. Okay, so the thin line is a thin line, and the recruitments can be on similar basis for both. Okay, if you're recruited to be a public figure, that's what's up. You're still a person, and you're still in a situation that just like that intelligence agents and or spy, just like we the people. And it's important, it's not, I'm not speaking just to leaders, I'm speaking to we the people, because the notion that people are leaders and leaders are people is not somewhere out there. It is a call to action. Right now you see a lot of courses. What are all these spies are doing that are teaching you courses on how to interact with people? Okay, what does a person who is incredibly sociopathic have to teach you about how to interact with people and how to get what you want from them, or how to not be lied to? And it's very interesting to see the different cultures. And hear a person speaking about this in an English podcast. They speak about how not to be lied to. But you say, I have to say how to get, how to lie to others, because if I say how not to be lied to, people feel vulnerable and exposed. And maybe this is a trick, maybe it's not. In another culture, it's like you need, well, to have meaningful relationships, we need communication skills, and we need to know when a person, what motivates a person, then we can get them to do what we want. And it's always the heart of interaction is manipulation and so on. Guess the culture, I don't know. But you see how the tactics that leaders are learning and the intelligence is learning is infiltrating society with the pros and cons around this. But also, just like these spies or intelligent agents, which is spies and intelligence agents, you know. Rare cases do you have people like Julian Assange, which was a hacker when he was a kid, and he was like, he knew what's up, so he did something about this. And whether we are leaders or we are people, we all need to free people like Assange, because we are affected by this. Okay, and when you're no longer wanted by those who recruit you, you find yourself in the same situation of the kid, the wife, the husband that escaped the violent situation. And because you know how to identify violence now, then the police is not the police that will tell you, come, drink something, eat something, we'll take you to a family that you can have a safe stay here until you get on your feet, and so no, it's the same police that tells you, though the shelter is 40 minutes walk, go ahead, and it's 40 minutes drive in the cold, in the snow. um, that's the police you'll run into. Okay. um, when they get that you know how these things operate. And so it doesn't matter if you are a person who just escaped, I don't know, domestic violence or violence at work, or a genuinely secular refugee, okay, not an agent of something, but a genuinely secular refugee that escaped violence and wants to live a good life, okay? Not the person that beats anybody, not the person that, yeah, a person that, really the type of person, like if you get housing, if you get food, you won't have a reason to do crime. And so, um, and of course, if people are not racist towards it, which is a cultural thing, this is true. But you find yourself in the exact same situation. Doesn't matter which name you're. Donald Trump could find himself in the exact same situation. So of course, any person, okay, um, can find themselves in in such situations. And so the only call to action, any leader ever has, and any person ever has, is to be inclusive of those who are marginalized in a way that doesn't make other people marginalized. As a Me Too veteran, this was a big challenge to me. And I had answers. Most of the people that try to control you, they're terrified of you, and what they need is to control themselves. They're a fun place that they can do with even looking at their own brains and seeing how they work like a child, that they can control their own minds rather than control your mind. Because this is what they want control. It's not about you. Okay? You should be able to have the right to exit your work. You should not have to ask for recommendation from work, because as far as we are human and we want to know somebody that knows this person, if they've been in a violent workplace, in many cases you cannot talk about this. There is a process of healing. Before litigation comes healing. The litigation is not about vengeance, okay? And to quote the actual civil litigator, it's to get the attention of those people who've been committing the offense. Like, hey, that's the only way you listen to us, so we're gonna sue you. But it's not about anything else. So you gotta heal yourself. You gotta be able to do this, to have the right to exit, and you're not able to just get another job. I've had Me Too veterans that I know that did impressive things, impressive litigations. They're like, why can't I keep a job? Why can't I work? I don't know what to do. And I'm like, darling, what do you expect? You fought an 8 years war. When a person goes to the Second World War was 4.5 years. You fought an 8-year war. You expect to go to work. And when we expect our veterans to just go to work, okay, so you'd say, oh, the good thing, everybody's going to know what CPTSD is. And I do not wish you to get this information in this particular way. Yes, of course, we're talking about an army sign. The only call to action, whether it is we as people, as culture, you see a person waiting, you're a waitress. I ran into this case, you're a waitress. So you see a girl or person standing, they seem to be running from something. They're waiting, they're standing there, running from a human trafficking agent that tried to recruit them. What do you do in this stage? Do you call the authorities? No, they might be involved. Do you at least allow this person to stand there? Maybe give them a cup of water. Maybe give them a toast or something. That's the difference. But if you say, no, the rules are that you cannot stand here, what do you think is going to happen when they no longer need you at that restaurant? A war, like right now. Everybody's recruited. So yeah, we say, oh, they need employees. Yes, not usually at a place like nobody comes to dine. I'm in Israel. I've been to Israeli Center, which is like a big center in Tel Aviv, huge building, and I just went to take a cup of water, to be honest, and hear two waitresses talking with each other, say, "Oh, there's at least 10% less employees. Nobody comes," and it was Purim, which was a holiday. And I saw this; the place was empty. Usually, there are many people. I said, maybe I'm not used to it. I don't go all that much to public places. And I asked the woman who was there. She said, no, the place is empty. I never seen a Purim this empty. Because it's a war. Everybody's in the army. No clients. Your landlord would still want the rent, right? And then if you are the type of person who say, "Oh, by the rules, you should not be standing here," your landlord will be saying the same to you. By the rules, you should not be living here. Okay? There's no replacement to inclusive culture. There's no replacement to assisting each other in a way that doesn't marginalize us. And this and when you do any type of leadership, because now things change, worlds change, governments change, states change, everything changes. The only call to action is to be inclusive in such a way. And I pull in the veil of ignorance, because the veil of ignorance is a great critical tool, philosophical tool to understand the situation. We can talk about intersectionality all day long, and we're not wrong. But the veil of ignorance says, if I don't know what my situation in a certain society or in a certain country, yes, what would I need so that no matter if I go into this society, I don't know what will be my position in society, that I would want to go into this society. This is the veil of ignorance. We all have growth to do there. We all have blind spots. It's the only call to action of any leadership. Because once they recruit you, you have an expiration date. On your expiration date, you are as marginalized as the next spy, as the next spy that they decided they no longer want to vouch for. This is true to leaders, and this is true to people. So you can consider this a call to action, both for me in my personal life, and because we are in these trying times, and to share with the world. Because this is important. The only way to exit violence is to allow the right to exit. A lot of people blame the person in the violent situation, blame the this, blame the that, darling, when it is viable to exit a situation that is violent and be safe, knowing that you can't go to the same. It will take time until you will understand even what type of work you can do at that time, because the worldview is changing. You no longer see the world in a similar fashion. Astrologically, it's an outer planet to inner planet. It takes a couple of years, and what you'll be exposed to is situations that are similar. It's not because you are recreating your traumas. It's not because you are to blame for it. You're just encountering an outer planet transit to an inner planet. Okay, Pluto is transiting. You will encounter a situation of power and power relations. Saturn is transiting. You will encounter a situation where your past action have accumulated to something And if that, Saturn is with an outer planet, so it's the question, should I be changing only my action? Should society change as well? Like in the Saturn square Uranus that was during COVID. And now Saturn is will be applying to conjoin Neptune. So we're going to be knowing a lot about the structure of spy system and organized crime in the medical field. Neptune just rules all of them. I don't make the news. Um, and so when you understand this, then you understand that the only call to action is for us as society to allow these transits to be is when we have these places where a person can retreat to without being recruited. Okay, because when you go to shelters, either they push you to the side and then, or they send agents. Okay, these sent agents. And you see, some of them they have funny story, each and every one of them. It's a nurse that did not have a shift at work and became homeless during a global pandemic. Um, it's a guy that comes with a suitcase, you know, not assuming anybody's gender, but the suitcase and the guy's face don't match, and it has a KLM ticket on it. Okay, obviously this guy is not, and they're coming only at the day to the shelter. Some of the guys would be sleeping in the shelter, some of the coming for a day watch. Um, that's a lot of effort. That's a lot of effort to try to recruit people. And there are many things to it, okay? But when I'm saying this call to action, I'm not just saying this call to action to you, I'm saying this call to action to myself. There's a lot to be tending to create such societies. And it's a lot to be tending to in our war strategies as well. What you think, surely enough, what the person may think, oh, this is the right strike to be strong enough to avoid this person ever doing to me this again. And then I should open the pathways like, Jordan Peterson. That's how you see it. Maybe they see it differently. Maybe they think they need to kill you now. Okay, so this is a genuine issue because people are different. Their experiences are different. What's important to one person, and sometimes you don't even understand that something is important to you until you meet a situation where that hey, that is not happening, hey, that is more important to me than I even figured out. This is important to me. When you escape violence, that's going to happen to you because inherently you were in a situation that you either the power concentrated in a place that's too much, and you have to decentralize it in some way, and you didn't think that matters that much, or you knew that that's somehow not good, but you were not tending to that because you couldn't, or yeah, it's kind of like at that point, or you began to tend to that, and then a crisis happened. You no longer view the world in the same way. Okay, when I escaped, post Me Too, I had a question. I said, okay, I'll be self-employed because I'm not going to, do this to my colleagues either. And I'm just going to look at them like, who's next? And I also began to leak. I received the information. It's kind of like I didn't think my taxes do anything bad because I got welfare. So I remember how difficult it was to have my rights, but I didn't think that to pay tax, it was not on my mind. What do my taxes fund? Okay, but I was not thinking in that way. So I was like, oh, I see what my taxes fund. I got a degree from that, and that was the only venue for me to get a degree because work was not. Oh, right, I was basically paid to not work. because the troubles I was making when I was working by exposing truth were not really. Oh, that's how I got. That's how I got there. That's how I got there. Okay, that's how I got to be sick. That's how I got to be in a mental crisis where I thought, give me an ending to life, death with dignity, or give me funding to studies because I like to study. Okay, and that was me in 2010, 2011. That's how I got there. Um, So you don't think about it. You just like, oh, right now I'm studying, and of course you don't want to think about all the troubles of the world all the time. Uh, you wake up in 5 a.m. It's like, oh, the sun is conjuncting Rahu. Let's wake the entire building up with, with a video. Um, but but there comes a time where you tend to that, and when you escape it's time to escape a certain situation that's been oppressive, that's been centering the power in the wrong place for you now, um, then you no longer think the same. You no longer see the same. Often eclipses are involved as well. Eclipses were definitely involved when I was in the Me Too Academia. And I understood very soon it's not a manhunt, it's a structural change. I don't know how to change the structure, but so I wrote a satire. What do you do when you want to reflect something around society? Flying Bombardier was no different. Um, and this video is, a step before satire. Uh, we make satires of fundamentalist leaders, but this is also anything that's not on par on the call to the right to exit is satirical, because the police would only stand by you so much, and when they no longer need you, because your agenda and their agenda is like, yeah, like your agenda is nice, but we don't really need to implement it to get our agenda implemented, and these are the guys that hold the funds. That's what's up. So any person with a daytime job learns that very quickly, or not. But sometimes you cannot, because your life depends on that, the livelihood and life. Then you cannot allow yourself sometimes to have that much insight, and you say, oh well, I do tend to. Yes, with eclipses, changing times are calling us to tend to even more things. And sometimes we have big achievements in where we were, and now is the next phase. The next phase for this call to action, well, it's a military based eclipse. It's a solar eclipse, going to affect leaders, but it's also going to affect everybody's I am. So don't be fooled. It's not going to just affect Queen so and so and King so and so. It's going to affect every individual. This is why many of us awaken like with deep thoughts and intense energies, and 5 in the morning while you're recording a video, because this is the changing times. This picture is very historical as well. I painted it. It was channeled picture that I did a channeling experiment and allowed something to take force. Some of it was the colors that I like. I really like the colors here, but the information that came had to do with like the history and wars. And I have to admit, I don't remember everything. I was just painting a picture. So it's reasonable that I will be looking at this picture while recording this video. It's going to affect the I am of everybody. So identity. If they get you by the identity, if they get you to say I am and say a word after the I am that serves their agenda. Okay, for example, let's take it to industry, the self-love industry. If I get you to think that, I don't know, buying a body butter or buying an astrological cream for me is an act of self-love towards you and you, I can get you to do things you're not comfortable with, because you're like, oh, I'm not used to loving myself. I have to practice this new habit to love myself. Okay, and it works on me too. Okay, I prepare, I do my habits, preparing my what do you call it, products. It's not yet a product because it's not sold, but we're working on my product. um, or things that could be products, with the same mindset. Okay, it's like, hey, this is an act of self-love to do that. And then the question is if it really is. But once people get to your identity, you will do things you're even not comfortable with, because you're like, hey, I'm learning a new habit. It's like, I am a person that loves themselves. What would a person that loves themselves do? Which is very Aries, or Venus Aries healing. And then you're trying new things. So any company, any person that gets you to change money for these new things that you try, this act of purchase, yeah, buy yourself a nice dress. This is a self-loving act. Yeah, buy yourself this makeup, or buy yourself this better organic food. If it is organic or not is another question. But this is an act of self-love. Okay, this is marketing, and it can be used for good, and it can be used for not so good. But anybody that gets you to say I am. Okay, this is also the sign of the military. So the only thing I learned in a department of politics and governance, and the only thing that research would get funded for and get to Q1s, so you gotta get to Q1s if you want a job. Um, the only thing would be voting patterns, and one genius person that got uh, you know, that made himself a career as a researcher was looking into how identity plays in voting patterns. It's beyond identity politics. It's a genius person. I I just adore this person because because I know that he's been going through certain struggles that he doesn't know that I know. But with the academia and with people that are actually involved in a children trafficking ring. Yes, I don't think he knows that. Um, but like he survived hell. So it's not for nothing that he looked into identity, I tell you that. Um, but this is something you want to know, okay? Because those who fund studies, who fund grants, who give you a grant to do a PhD, okay, this is a couple of years. It's usually more than 2-3 years. It's a couple of years that you'd be doing pretty much nothing but writing an essay over something that's completely funded. They're like, oh, I'm so lucky. Yes, if you serve the agenda. And what would they want to know is they want to know what if in the democratic system, what governs the voting identity. If they get something into your identity, then you're going to do things that you're even not comfortable with doing things, because I'm becoming. Okay? There is I am, there is it's not even a fake it till you make it. Yet I act on my identity. This is Aries in the light form and in the dark shade. There is when you want to heal the Aries part in your chart, you say I am, and you associate the things that are actually beneficial to you, which is research, a life quest even. And now with Chiron, we are more aware of where that I am has been wounded, and many people try to redefine themselves. On a more national level, yes, the moon is going to conjunct the sun. It's kind of like, hey, this country is, whether it's, this country is a secular country. This country is not a fundamentalist country. Okay? So a lot of people tend to the I am. We also need to understand about the economy of identity, and to understand who funds my identity right now. We all have it. I'm not included. This is in my second house of income, values, and expenses as to one ascendant. If we take the Aries ascendant, that would be a 17 degrees Aries ascendant. That would be me. Okay, so I'm here not speaking to you from a point of an observer, but the point of a person who is going through this, and whose ability to say I am, it will have to be executed in different ways. This is the meaning of an Aries eclipse. This is why it is a sign that's so associated with conflict, with war. Also, military sign. Army soldiers, leaders in the army will redefine themselves after this eclipse. This is why this is associated with rebellion in the army and a lot of violence, because people will redefine themselves and they will have to find independent ways to assert this I am. And um, when your identity is not funded, when your identity doesn't have a safe housing and food and so on and so forth, um, then people get into an identity crisis. This is the desire, so that people get into this identity crisis and will do things that are either not fit with identity, or even better for those who created such crisis, um, to do things that are not usual, that they do associate with their identity. So this can happen to leaders with a solar eclipse, but the people are not neglected. It's not a lunar eclipse, but the people are not neglected because the sun exalts in Aries, and the sun in Aries speaks to the leader within each and every one of us. And so I say again, it's conjoined in Aries. The only call to action that is effective is to be inclusive in a way that doesn't marginalize other, and you have to have a space that you can retreat to make good decisions. Okay, all of these things are used as cards against people once they're no longer recruited, once they're no longer relevant, once and you could be Joe Biden or Donald Trump, and you could be Tom, Dick, and Henry. You could be Israeli. You could be Sinwar. You could be anyone. This is solar eclipse. This is the I am. But a lot of people will be entering a new I am phase in their lives. So the for example, one of the worst mistakes that Hitler did, because he was not just the person who made mistakes, he put Germany on a different level when it comes to economy, um, was being not inclusive of the marginalized. He was a homeless, he was a people's person, he tended to be learn what the people want, but then he was not inclusive of the marginalized. I'm not just talking about the Jews. He could say, we deported you. A lot of Jew leaders came to him and say, oh, we want a country. You say, okay, I will deport. He could say, okay, I will deport you to this country. It's not a problem. Yes? But he did not provide the right to exit violence. And that would be inclusive of disabled people, people who go to mental crisis, people that people consider weak. They're not weak at all. Okay. They're not. You need to learn, as a person who's been in this situation, like it's self-stigma to think, oh, I'm weak in this situation. No, darling, you're not weak.